Realize. ಎಲ್ರಿಗೂ ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ. Hearty welcome to Jnanarjane Empowering Excellence. Friends, today study circle, Wednesday study circle, we have a very interesting and apt topic is India entry services as an offering. To explain this, we have a very important and eminent speaker and a person who has a practical experience in that. He's going to throw light on that, how an offering for people who are coming to India, how we can give a best offer, what facility we can provide to them. I think he's going to explain all those things, much more than that. So he's none other than CA Guru Prasad M, along with his assistant CA Sri Lakshmi also is there. So on behalf of Bangalore branch and on behalf of all the participants here, hearty welcome to CA Guru Prasad M. Hearty welcome, Guru. On behalf of Bangalore branch and on behalf of all the participants here, hearty welcome to Sri Lakshmi. CA Sri Lakshmi, hearty welcome to you. Friends, you are the reason for this program. Your overwhelming response for all the programs of Bangalore branch is the reason we are conducting almost every day. Sometimes it is twice a day we are conducting programs. I think people are encouraging us to and appreciating this. Yes, we need the program. That is the reason we are doing it. So I request your feedback also regularly. So with that note, hearty welcome to each one of you for Wednesday study circle. And currently the standards on auditing workshop is going on. 6th to 9th, 4 days in days workshop is there. I request you all register to those workshop, which are all very, very important for those who are into audit and assurance practice. And from 10th to 12th, 3 days workshop on succession planning is there. Again, it's a very, very important workshop for those who are looking new areas of practice. It is an important workshop for those who are looking for new areas of practice is succession planning. We can definitely develop a good area of practice in succession planning. Good number of people are looking for that. So in that reason, we organized that 3 days workshop, and Saturday is a full day and total 12 hours of learning. Experts from Mumbai are enlightening us or imparting their knowledge on those topics. I request all of you to register that program and also spread that news to your friends and colleagues. Friends, on 17th of this month, 6 days international taxation workshop we have organized. This is a 6 days workshop, international taxation. That is from 17th to 26th. In addition to every Wednesday study circle. And on 22nd, we have organized 1 day workshop on accounting standards for SMEs. This is along with the Accounting Standard Board of ICAI. That program details may come tomorrow or day after. It will be hosted in website. I request all of you to visit bangalorei.org to register for all the programs. Also know all the new programs and other initiatives of Bangalore branch. With that note, once again, hearty welcome to each one of you. Over to Divya.
Thank you, Chaman. A very pleasant good evening to all the participants and our panelists. I would like to give a brief introduction about our speakers of today's program. Firstly, I would like to introduce about Guru Prasad sir. He's founder of Guru and Jana, a 350 people accounting firm heading consulting practice, business development, culture and strategy. He's founder of Vardhan, a boutique social responsibility advisory firm with JV with Rafa USA. Founder of Pathway, a SEBI-registered angel investment fund. Partner of Abharna and Anantam, heading corporate law and accounting functions in the firm. He qualified, worked in PwC and attest function and was involved in major audits. By qualification, he's chartered accountant, commerce and law graduate from Bangalore University. He has completed advanced management program from IIM Bangalore qualified insolvency professional registered under Insolvency and Bankruptcy Board of India. With this brief introduction, I welcome you for today's program, sir. CA Sri Lakshmi P. By academic, she is insolvency professional, chartered accountant, company secretary, MSc in psychology, master's and bachelor in commerce, received gold medal from Azim Premji. Currently, she is partner at Guru and Jana, chartered accountant firm. She is looking into corporate governance, payroll and HR function, also heading India Entry Services. She is founder member of CAPS Foundation and volunteer of Mahatriya Guru and Jana Foundation. She conducts campus placement program for many institutes. With this very brief introduction, I welcome you also for today's program, ma'am. Hearty welcome once again for both of you on behalf of Bangalore branch.
Thank you.
Yeah,
over to Chairman.
Over to Guru.
Thank you, Shetty sir. Thank you, Divya. So nice of you to call us. It's always a pleasure to come to the Bangalore branch because it is our alma mater, and the entire profession we are having, the entire livelihood we are having is because of our profession, and which is going back to our alma mater. And that is very beautiful to come. So I do get invites in other branches, but getting it from Bangalore branch is very special. And today, myself and my partner, Sri Lakshmi, we have another 75 minutes or odd time to take you through. And we have almost structured it in such a way that in 1 minute, we'll have one slide. So it's going to be quite snappy and quite fast. And we'll try to move things as we go around so that we also have some time to deliberate on the issues and discuss on the issues. Those of you who are attending today, you have to understand that this is one area of work which all of us know. But unfortunately, being accountants and chartered accountants, we have not positioned India correctly. The amount of benefit each of us have got in this has been a large extent of our professional endeavors. If the positioning is correct and if the data is going to move correct, your practice can go multifold just by this one thing. I wish a few of you would positively implement what we are going to discuss now. Not that you don't know much about what we are going to talk, you know everything of it. But by the end of the presentation, I'm sure you will find out that, oh my God, we could have done it this way. We could have done it that way. So we have tried to structure it in such a way that we will put it as a package of what all we are going to try to deliver today. My colleague Sri Lakshmi has got the slide master, so she is going to change as I move through. Sri, can you move to the next one, please? And we tried to make this presentation purely for practitioners. Tomorrow somebody can come and tell, okay, Airbus is coming to India. What is the India entry strategy? I would rather go and tell them, look, I'm not looking at Airbus. I am looking at something much more different, because we are all coming from a SME. As a chartered accountant in practice, I would tell whether it could be a proprietary entity or a 2 partners or a 10 partners. All of us have anything between 5 employees to 400 to 500 employees. That is the spectrum of all our practices. So where we are trying to contact is, we are trying to contact smaller enterprises from US, UK, Germany, wherever it is. How do we get them to India? And the smaller the enterprise, larger the profits. And in this India Entry Services, there is zero level of risk, highest level of integrity. And the joy of doing work with so many nations is itself a different game. Next one, Sri. And what all we are trying to cover today, we are trying to tell what does India Entry Services mean, what all we would include in this, certain nuances when we are planning to do this, what are the issues you will get into place, what problems you would face. Yes, of course, I would like to give a few tips on how do you get business. See, everybody may tell, okay, if I'm sitting down here and if a company from San Francisco or London comes, after it comes, I know how to do service. But as a professional, we also need to understand how do we get business within the framework of our code of conduct, because we cannot be going around distributing pamphlets and brochures like everybody else. We have our decorum, we have our profession to protect. So how do we get business? At least we have covered some 5 or 6 slides. and certain aspects specific to a holding company and the India company. Wherever we refer as holding company, let us look at as the US, UK, Germany, Japan, China companies, the subsidiaries in India, and also a little bit about what technology we use to get into these foreign enterprises and how do we get it. Important, how do you package your product? How do you price your product? It could be a professional service, but you would need to productize a service. That's going to be very vital. Now, it's very easy for me to go and tell a client telling that, look, section 92 bracket 3, this is what it's going to tell. And by this, there is ITAT judgment in the Bangalore Tribunal, which is seconded by the High Court of Bombay. And because of this, you get into this. It's quite easy for me to reload 4 sections and 4 case laws. But having said that, how does it make a difference to the client who is going to come in? Is he getting impressed at my service? Or is he getting clarity is the entire moot point we are going to discuss. Some specific legal points only in relation to India entry services. What are the legal points we have to keep, whether it is Companies Act, POSH, sexual harassment, or income tax, any of those we'll cover there. So in a nutshell, we are trying to do why, what, how, when, how much. All of it we'll try to cover. It would be a nice journey for you in the next 55-60 minutes. The end result could be the same. All of you would agree with me that the end result would be the same. You also incorporate, I also incorporate, we also do the same balance sheet. But the process in doing this is very different. That is how I'm trying to reiterate the fact that let's find out how do we customize this service and how do we productize a professional service and showcase it to the world outside. Make India much more nicer and easier for them to come. Next one, please. And what does India entry services mean to you? As I told you, the starting clientele would not be very big. I'll give you a practical example. A software company in Chicago wants to come and set office in India. So they want to find out whether it is possible in Bangalore, Pune, Hyderabad, wherever. And approximately they want to hire 15 people or 20 people. So the entire game of this presentation is with such a small enterprise of a software service, how do we bucket our services so that our annual fee could be 20 lakhs per client? So that means if I have 2 clients of this nature, almost I have an annual fee of 40 lakh of rupees. And that is how we have to fragment our services, project it well, and explain it well to a person who is coming outside. I'm sure many of you or all of you sitting here would have gone abroad. Imagine you are going abroad, you don't know the language, you don't have the local guide, you don't have a Lonely Planet book, you don't have Google. What do you think you'll do? Now, an expat coming into India, he does not know anything. Google can only give that much information. If Google could have served all the information, there would have been very less need of a chartered accountant. Next one. So you will have to pick up where you are going to talk. And here is something which is extremely vital for all of us. I'm not telling this is wrong, but today's life is different. This is only one example. This is a very nice website called companiesin.com, and they offer a service where they tell, look at the right side of the box, you can fix appointments, and they tell a company registration, including the filing fees, is 1,999. That means 1,999 is his fees, and the filing fees could be 2,000-3,000 bucks. So you're going to compete with a technology world where you are going to position incorporation and India entry services in such a way, and a foreigner would come back and ask, Guru, this website is charging 1,999. Adengappa, ನೀವು sorry, how is it you guys are charging 2 lakhs? Of course, ಅವನು ಕನ್ನಡದಲ್ಲಿ ಮಾತಾಡಲ್ಲ, ನಾನು ಕನ್ನಡದಲ್ಲಿ ಯೋಚನೆ ಮಾಡ್ತೀನಿ. How is it you guys are charging 1,50,000? So what is the difference that you can get from this and this? Even he is giving an incorporation certificate, he is doing the memorandum, he is doing the spice forms, PAN, TAN stuff. But what is different with you? So that is where the profession kicks in. Next one, Shri. I think it's your role. We'll try to mix and match between Sri Lakshmi and me.
Not yet, Guru. I come in at the next stage.
Okay, you will have to make your video on so that at least we can figure out that you're seeing me and signaling to me. And the India entry services is a provision of being a guide to the entire enterprise. So we are not just a service provider, we are almost a guide. One single source of trust. As and when we go into the India entry services, over the years of experience, this is our 10th year in the India entry services we are doing. On average, every year we get anything between 5 to 6 new clients. That means every year we could add at least 1 crore of rupees to our top line revenue. Margins are 50-60%, extremely honest business. And this is where we are going to give a professional outlook. This is where we are bringing the profession into fray. So one single source of trust. Now, when somebody is coming from Czechoslovakia, he does not even know our nation. And what is told by the strange media, they almost paint India as a corrupt nation. They almost paint India as something which has got everybody are dying due to COVID. There is nobody alive in this country, so on and so forth. And that is what gets projected outside in the world. So one single source of trust, they come back to you and ask, look, I'm hiring this guy. What do you think? I want to fire this guy. Can you give me advice? So you become almost a sounding board for everything. We have some relationships of India entry services for 8-10 years now. And every year, obviously, they grow from 15 employees to 20 employees. Our fees grows, our trust grows. And then as a chartered accountant, we will normally have a one-time service or a recurring service or an annual service. We'll dwell a little more deeper as we go there. And this is one such area of profession where you can explore that you can showcase your talent in direct taxes, in GST, transfer pricing, Indian GAAP, your legal services, labor laws, contract laws, including the fact that Guru, who is the caterer in your office? To that extent, in fact, we get calls telling that from whom do you buy laptops? Can you introduce us? So this is one place where I don't see any law untouched. We are almost covering the entire spectrum of our bouquet of laws offering to everybody. So these are the India entry services we are going to cover. Over to you, Shri.
So actually, mine was still at the next slide, but thank you, Bangalore branch. Thank you, Chairman sir. Thank you, Divya, for the introduction. Shetty sir introduced me as Guru's assistant. So I always feel there is so much to learn from him, and it's a pleasure to be sharing the dais with him today. So today, as chartered accountants, Guru was telling, we get calls, strange calls telling who can be our caterers or where do we take the laptops from. In fact, a little more strange calls also we get is, I'm getting my kid married and this is the girl. Do you know something about this family? Or they want us to be their confidants to the will that they want us to execute. So many such things we've developed over a period of time where the client develops the trust in whatever services we offer for them, and we build that relationship over a period of time. So we are not only chartered accountant, but we need to know sort of the law also, where we have the knowledge of a CA, knowledge of a lawyer, the basic business sense also we need to know what the client is doing the business on. That also we understand as chartered accountants, and we provide technology solutions also today. We are so moving towards the tech world. We have a lot of slides later which touch on a few things on technology in the India entry services space itself. So the technology solutions also can be something that we can provide to our clients. What do you think the client expects from us? So I think as chartered accountants today, all of us know this. They want ease of business. They want ease of operations for their business. Their core strength is not numbers. Their core strength is not finance. Their core strength is not compliance. So all of that they expect us as chartered accountants to do. So they want us to be their Spock. So as a single point of contact, whom does the client reach out to in case of anything that they want to work with? So over a period of time, since we work with a lot of members internally in the organization, we realized around 10-12 people are at any point in time involved in a client engagement. So the client name at gurujana.com, we create one ID as soon as the client, we start engaging with them. Then the group ID, the client sends a mail to, and the respective member who is involved in that will reply to the client. So this is something you can think of as a Spock, where if 3-4 people are coordinating, we'll have a single email ID for the client, which the client can write to, and we can provide solutions to them. So when a foreign entity needs to enter India, what has to be done? The most important thing we have to do is to build confidence for the clients. By building confidence means we have to give them the law that it is simple. Guru was telling that companies.in provides services at 1,999 rupees for incorporation. If you think that is unbelievable to believe, there are certain service offerings where they will incorporate the company to you for free, but you have to take certain service offerings for them, like monthly accounting, or you have to take payroll or GST, some sort of compliance you have to take with them for a year. So they will not charge you for incorporation. They will give you free incorporation service, and then they will expect that you will be their client for a year, and they will recover money from you. So those sort of models are also there. And it is commonly told by everyone, like how the COVID scenario is blown out of proportions. Clients think that starting a company in India is very difficult. In US, we have websites where the company is incorporated in a day's time, whereas India, they come to us with a long face and they tell us, does it take 90 days to incorporate a company in India? Those were the yesteryears, but today even we can incorporate companies quite faster if we have all the documentation soon. In COVID times, in the second wave time itself, we have had incorporations where morning we file a form and evening it gets incorporated. It's a different thing that they have now revamped the MCA website. So though we want to tell a client that it is simple, it is lucid, easy to understand everything, as chartered accountants, we have to bear the brunt of it, whatever are the technical issues we face, but at least we make it easier for the clients. The whole idea is that we tell clients that it is simple, it is easy. Yes, we can incorporate the company for you. Are we corrupt in this space? No, we are a non-corrupt country. So much we have progressed to where we have reached today, because the incorporation filing fees for a company you want to incorporate in India, which is less than 15 lakhs capital, is just 3,020 rupees. And everything has become online. So the whole idea is we build this for the client, telling it's very easy for you. Please, it is simple, not complicated. We will do it for you. Then step 2 is where we help the client understand that there is corporate affairs and governance, which is basically to do with, because this is India Entry Services and we are talking of foreigners coming to India, we are telling that you need to have probably 2 board members where you will have majority of the board making decision. The shareholders will be in the parent company, which is outside India. So explain to them what is required out of the board meeting and the shareholders meeting. And of course, explain the state and the central regime. Today, incorporation happens through the center, and where we are as a company, we have to follow the central regime, which is the state regime. So, and the labor regulations, of course. So, too many labor regulations we have to take care. Coming to step 3, it is not a one-off exercise. It's not that I incorporate the company and then it's done. It's not that the baby is born and I'm free of responsibility. No. At the stage of India Entry Services itself, I work with a client where we give them a beautiful experience of the incorporation engagement. Then it is an engagement for the life of the company. Just today afternoon, I think somebody's audio is echoing. Shetty sir, if you don't mind, could you please mute your audio? Thank you, sir.
Oh, sorry.
So it is an engagement for the life of the company. So the whole idea here is we incorporate the company, the baby is born, and we take care of the baby to make it grow to the different years of its life. So yesterday we were having a call with a client, and recently an acquisition had happened for this client. And the lawyers were very impressed with the data we had, because we were involved in this company from day one of incorporation. They probably had it in their mind that they wanted to experiment with some other consultant. But with all the facts we had in hand and all the data we presented to them beautifully, they felt very confident that they wanted us to continue for the services, though there was an acquisition that had happened. And at the start of operations itself, let us give clarity to a client on what can be the full year of operations that they need to take care of in terms of the compliances. So we'll touch on this a lot more later. I will move to the next slide. This is how we have broken it up. It is progress, like incorporations and registrations, what we are required to take. Certain commercial aspects, this can be a little interesting, because point 1, most of us would know. Point 2, it is where we can give our mind to. Then the progress and holding company versus the India company. Incorporation and registration. This is again, as chartered accountants, we all know how to incorporate a company. Today, the director identification number is obtained along with the incorporation. Digital signature is what we obtain beforehand. For the digital signature, let's have a checklist where we give to a client, where we tell them these are the document requirements from you. That apart, we require certain things like the mobile number, email ID, father's name, all those things we should take. Review of MOA and AOA. Let us make sure that the MOA and AOA, what we file for the client, we send it to the client, take their okay, and then only let's move ahead. Typically, these US entities or the foreign UK entities or any of these parent companies, they will always have their legal team. So let them take the help of their legal team, let them give you an okay. Let it not be that they blame us later that we went ahead and filed something, we didn't take their consent. So as a thumb rule, let us always share the memorandum and articles to the company. When it comes to the articles, let us have a model articles that we follow. By model articles, you have to build these articles over a period of time as and when you have done corporate governance work for a client. Let's say share transfer, board meeting, proper clauses in the agreement. Then you have buyback clauses. Then there are these type of clauses become very important in the articles. Take, for instance, can the shares be forfeited, or what happens if your share certificate is lost? All those things also can be included as a part of the AOA, which means you don't have to keep amending your AOA as and when the business progresses. So though we have a template, let us run it past the client and then use that for every incorporation. MOA has to be customized. Your important articles will have to be as per the client, what they do, and that has to be clearly documented. Understand rights, liabilities, and duties of the directors. This we are going to touch more a little later also. So I'm going to park it for now a bit. Comes the important point of apostille and notary. Apostille and notary also is a little technical, that a lot of chartered accountants ask me this doubt, or a lot of consultants ask me this doubt, telling we get a little confused, but today it is quite clear how we have to go about. Then after the first step of all the incorporation documentation is done, the baby is born. Along with incorporation, we get the PAN and TAN, we get the GST if we have applied for the GST. PF and ESI also comes along with the incorporation application together. It will come after the incorporation is done. So at the time of incorporation, the incorporation certificate PAN TAN is easily allocated. Later comes your PAN and TAN emails from the income tax website, and then comes GST a little while later only. PF ESI also comes to you. Karnataka and Maharashtra has professional tax also, which is integrated into the incorporation. So these are the registrations that we have to take. A common question I get asked is, we are right now only 4-5 employees, but PF and ESI has been allocated. Should we do the compliances? In those instances, it will kick in only once you touch the number of employees and not before. So apart from the incorporation, the ones in the red are what we are required to look at now. Father's name, most documents would not have that. I remember a situation when I had asked one of the foreign nationals to give me their father's name. They got very upset with me, telling, how can you ask my father's name? I was a little perplexed, thinking, why is he getting so upset with me? I just asked the father's name, right? But in foreign countries, it works very differently. And then I had to really explain to them why I needed the father's name. Some people would get offended. So now I have made it a practice. I tell them, this is the document where I have to fill your father's name. Please give it to me. For that purpose only, I'm asking. And then how much time, generally, the directors ask me, how much time they're required to spend on an India company. We all know they don't have to spend much time. As foreign directors, we appoint them as non-executive directors in the incorporation form. So make sure that this non-executive director is clearly chosen. For a reason, this 2013 Companies Act introduced the provision of resident director on the board, because in the earlier law, we could not hold one director responsible where they were not in India. And the government would find it very difficult for them to go after somebody in the foreign country to get some dues paid or to close a company. So very cleverly, they've introduced this resident director provision. And this resident director provision also, we have to make sure that we are doing KYC for all the directors every year so that their address, email ID, phone number with the OTP, everything is registered with the ministry. So through that, the resident director can be held responsible for any non-compliances which the India company has done. Another important point which we tell and most of them may not comply with is the beneficial interest forms. What is beneficial interest forms? We are aware that we require 2 shareholders. So 2 shareholders as registered owners. So 99.99% will be held as a parent company. 0.01% will be held as a beneficial owner, not as a beneficial owner, but as a registered owner. So we have to make sure that we pass the resolutions, go with MGT 4 and 5 and file the beneficial interest forms. More on director's liability and the resident director as a solicitor or a director, Guru is going to touch on that. So I'm going to go to the next slide. Any of you have any doubts? I think you can post in the Q&A window and we will answer that for you later. Statutory registrations we already saw. The simpler ones are going to come for us easily. The others that we might require are IEC, MSME, non-STPI registration. Please make sure you take them. If you are a tech company, it is going to help a lot. GST today is integrated with the incorporation forms, but I am told that GST filings will create trouble and it will not come easily the number. So we have chosen in our office that we don't file GST along with the incorporation form. Only later we go ahead and obtain the GST after the bank account is opened. So commercial aspects is where I will spend a little time, like 1 or 2 minutes. So when we talk of commercial aspects, after we start operations in India, there are certain relationships that the client has to get into which require definition, documentation, due care has to be taken, and considering the regulations, stamp duty has to be held for a client. Let's take place of business. When we talk place of business, today, of course, we don't have place of business in the current times. Most clients ask us to give a registered office address and they tell we are comfortable working from homes. But otherwise, when the offices are going to be there, we need to make sure that a rental agreement is properly drafted for the client. We have to tell them that please do not blindly sign an agreement which your landlord gives. Please run it past the lawyers, or we will draft it for you. We'll help in execution and we'll help in stamping. Then comes the bank account part of it. Today, bank account plays a very important role. I know it's a necessary evil. We really do not like working with the banks because they bore you with tons and tons of documentation, everything about a foreign company. They ask you for apostille and notary. But we have to select a bank for help because they give you good forex rates. We have to work with a few bankers and ensure that we've negotiated good forex rates for our clients. And then they are the authorized representative for FEMA because any filings we do, the bankers are the authorized dealers where you have to help us. Then the HR documents. So HR documents also, we can keep a whole lot of sets of documents with us. These can also be provided to the client as a package. And then comes a lot of things on the parent company agreements, which we will see as we go past in few of the slides. Stage 3 on the progress. This again is a huge offering which we can do, which is there again in the much later slides. I will move to the next one. So holding company versus the India company. When we are talking of a holding and the India company structure, transfer pricing has to be taken care. More on that later. GST on exports, ensure that you get the LUT. Exemption has to be obtained because export is exempt under the GST law. And let's make sure that there is an authorization matrix on payments to be done, decisions to be taken, petty cash, hiring and firing, what contracts we have to enter into. Those authorizations can be taken care. Over to Guru now for dealing with some of the other things.
Actually, I think we are going a little slow. You started at 16:17. You had to finish it by 16:24 because we have almost planned 1 slide per minute. We'll have to do a little faster. I'll not take much time for these 3 slides. See, whenever you're dealing with any expat, be very sure of confidentiality. Everything has to be well established and it has to be tech driven. This is something we use called password vault. Shri, next slide, please. Here in the client, if I just click on this and it goes on, and for example, take a GST portal. The GST password is not known to the entire team of GST. The password just gets and goes and sits in the GST portal on its own. When the manager clicks it, the article can get the password. He can't copy it. Even if he copies it, it doesn't work. Next one, Shri. And the tax is pretty important. We have to make it quite simple because in India entry services, tax is not a major concern. Tax assessments would be quite easier because the only transfer pricing issue is the concern. So instead of complicating life for them, telling that the tax is transfer pricing engagements or the section 92, you keep on going there with all the case laws. Yes, it is complex. Nobody is telling it is not complex. But at least at board level, you have to tell them there is no state tax in India. For example, if you are in US and there are some 8 employees working in 8 different states, you'll end up filing 8 returns in 8 states and again file the return in the company state. So one company with 8 employees will end up having 8 returns, but in India, we only have a single tax. So we just go and tell them there is nothing called federal state taxes. Income tax is for the country, GST is for the country, PF, ESA, everything is for the country. That is how, in fact, when you look at the India and US context, we are much better structured from the tax point of view. Our tax rates are the lowest. We are paying 25% taxes. So we explain to them in simple terms, look, your cost is 10, on that you have to have a margin. Just let us assume it is plus 2. 10 plus 2 is 12 and 2 is your profit, and on the 2 you pay a 25% tax. And that becomes very easy. Yes, we also go on and tell them, look, this 2, whatever is the profit, can become 2.5 or it can become 1.5. So you're leveraging just between that 0.5. So similarly, don't complicate any other laws, make it quite simple and keep moving ahead, because in a company which comes from abroad, other than TP, generally we are talking of cost plus companies because everything is a captive generation, IP remains in the US. It's yours, Sri.
Guru, that previous slide was yours only, but anyway, it didn't have much.
Continue.
So basically, this is the whole flow of incorporation. You will be amazed that there are around 22 steps. I think the initial incorporation is the first column. Then comes the bank account, which is going to take a lot of time. We have to initially itself tell a client it's going to take time to work. So these are the pointers where we have to comply one by one. The RBI reporting becomes important along with a valuation certificate. Make sure that the lease depository is also taken care. Share certificates and stamping have this requirement that within 30 days and 60 days, you are required to issue the certificates and complete the stamping. First board meeting within 30 days, of course. We can help the client with the collaterals and any stationery. Beneficiary form, I already told you about that. All the labor regulations which you have to take care. Then finalize the accounting and payroll tool, which Guru will touch on later. The employment agreements in NDA, HR policies, vendor agreements, the transfer pricing study, and last but not the least, file the IMC 20A, which is the capital remittance into the India entity. So this is the activity chart at the inception. You can create this as a
can I just pitch in, Sri, for a second?
Yes, Guru.
So what we are trying to tell in the next few charts is, it looks like a simple Excel spreadsheet. But put yourself in the shoe of an expat who is a technology guy or a manufacturing guy, and he's entering into India. And if you complicate his mind by telling GSTR 2, GSTR 3, GSTR 1, 2A reconciliation, he's going to go bonkers. So this chart we are trying to devise in such a way that this is what we present to the clients. And we have been transparent enough as a firm that let the entire profession benefit from all. In fact, all the techniques we are showing here is what we use as a real-time, on-time profession where we get to pitch to the clients. And tomorrow I do appreciate and understand the fact that all others also would use the same thing. That's perfectly okay. That's how the profession grows. So here in the activity chart, what Sri would take you through is how do you make it. So if you look at one return, you have TDS 4-5 sections, you have GST 10 sections, you have PTPF, again pension fund, superannuation, LIC. It is all so complex when you represent it through sections. Here, what is getting transpired is how do I make the same thing more simple and can give him such a simple chart that can he get the entire full 1 year in just 3 slides? Over to you, Shri.
We can have this sort of a Google Doc where instead of the client following up with us, when are we going to incorporate, when is the stage, what is the next thing, instead we can have this tracker, and through that we can showcase to them at the time of inception what all we are required to take care. Then is the monthly compliances. Monthly compliances of the labor also is a part of the payroll, whatever you do the compliances, that if you see we have populated it in all the months, it's highlighted. The revenue compliances comprises of the GST returns. So many returns have to be filed, withholding taxes, advance tax remittance, which needs to happen quarterly. That is also reflected easily. The corporate compliances basically to do with board meetings, shareholders meetings, and any need-based compliances that needs to be done. Other filings are your Softex, all the RBI related filings, the TP study and the SLA returns. This is to do with the monthly compliances. Next comes the annual one, which Guru is going to take over from here.
Okay, Anil, you want me to take it? Okay. It is very vital when we do a work of a foreign enterprise that we have to respect the conflict of interest. When I started, I always used to think I'll have a small firm internally, and there would be Guru and Jana as a firm. We'll project for everything, and we'll have one more ABC company inside, and we'll give the statutory audit to the ABC company. But very soon these things would not work, and it would create enough hassles in all our work. So let us be very, very transparent, and we always showcase them. Look, there are many audits in India. The statutory audit under the Companies Act and GST may come in, TDS, Income Tax Act 44AB may come in, Section 92 may come in. And then there is US audit also, because that's a December close, you are sitting in a March close. So there would be many audits and in many year close procedures. So if you go and confuse anybody by telling, look, I'll do separate audits, that becomes extremely complex. So the positioning will have to be, we'll give you 10 firms. Normally we have an empanelment of 8 or 10 firms. We go and tell them, look, if you want the larger MNC firms, these are the 3 firms. If you want mid-segment firms between 50 employees to 100 employees, these are the 8 firms. And if you want a very tiny firm or a small firm, I'm sorry, it's tiny is a wrong word to use, a smaller firm because it started now, and where do you want to choose? The costs, experience, everything change. So we present it that way and showcase it to them. And when you look at the bottom routine operations of accounting, the tech plays a very large role. So the opposite end does not even know who is working. As Shri was telling, if I have a client by name BT Shetty at company, which is a US-based entity, we just have a email ID btshetty@gurujana.com. And the client will just address it to it, and he does not know to whom it is addressed. So internally, the team interfaces and we reply back. But over the years, he may know, okay, the Guru is there, Gopal is there, so and so is there. They will pick it up. Next one, Shri. This is pretty important. We need to talk the same language. One example I could give you is, instead of telling state tax, income tax, and if you're going to take income tax department, I would rather call it as Inland Revenue Department. You start using the word state tax and federal tax. Make it very clear India is one nation and one tax. And Social Security Fund is similar to their Provident Fund. Our Provident Fund is like their Social Security Fund. Our PF has got a combo of pension fund. It is like their 401k plan. Try to move out of lakhs and get millions. It's much easier for them to comprehend. AP, AR, MIS, if I just delay MIS, they're lost. Make it a month close pack. Data security is very high. Basic terms like PST, EST, central time, initials. In fact, I was speaking to somebody, he does not know what is initials. He's telling what is initials. Then I told him small signature. A single point of contact or accelerator, bootstrapped, angel funding, convertible note. These are basic things which are extremely vital, because in the first call when you go, the terminology is what is going to make the difference. They know that we are speaking the same language. The simplest example is 7th May. You can as well write it as 7-5 or just make it as 7th May. Life is simpler. And it may not sound critical when we look at a domestic practice, but this is what you have to make it very, very important when you speak to an external company. Even though you are going to talk about your 44AB, 44AD in case of a consultant's, or 100 rates of taxes, these are routine compliances. But what a foreigner would look at is much larger governance, especially the corporate law. If you go back and tell, I would like to, we can date it back. That becomes the box close out. You would not be able to do something like that. In fact, you will have to go until I'm not going to date back. Now, a POSH policy is just a document, but that is what you need to spend a lot more time. In the first call, if you can spend time on Prevention of Sexual Harassment Act, how do you do a process manual for the entire accounting? Explain the payroll is done once in India, because in many places it's done twice in US. They do fortnightly payroll. Now, if I do fortnightly payroll, processing costs go up in India, everything goes up in India. The importance of CSR 2% Section 135 of the Companies Act. And what is the procedure for me to do the month close? I can't go back and tell him, look, I just do the month close. And differences between intern and employee. They think intern means there is no PF. And if they have a contract, there is no PF. So that's not the thing. You have to go a little deeper on these aspects, make it slow. Here is sometime you have to spend a little more time than telling what is EOA, what is MOA, what is the capital clause. That is mostly generic across the world. And selecting a banker, you would need to help him. We generally go and tell them a international bank is good, but India has got a situation where the banker is also a regulator. So if you're going to Citibank, he also is a regulator. He's an authorized dealer for all Forex laws. So we'll have to explain to them, look, if you go to Hong Kong or Shanghai Bank, it's a very good bank, but you may not get TDS. You may not get a GST. If you go to HDFC, you will get the following things. But now that guy is worried about, okay, HDFC, I've not heard of this bank. So we'll have to project it quite carefully. We normally tell them, okay, these are the study I've done for the following banks. Citibank has given to our clients in the last 12 months the following rate. HSBC has given the following rate. HDFC has given the rate. ICICI has given the rate. Then you go and compare and show them, look, this is the rates I've got. Now you make an informed decision. And please tell money has to come in foreign currency. Many of them in US will send money in Indian rupees. That's going to blow up my GST collections, because GST will be taxable if money does not come in Forex. FEMA compliance would be in trouble. They find it easier to convert it into rupees in US and send it. They save a lot of money. Next one, Shri. And basic cardinal principles. India close happens in March, while a US close happens in December. You need to talk of 2-1-year close. Do not have an employee here before you start the company. They tell, I'll have an employee employed in US. Now that could attract a PE establishment, permanent establishment would come in. A contractor is a very meek tool for a PE. They'll tell, okay, we'll not give him an employment, we'll make him a consultant. Well, fine, if he's a consultant, how many clients does he have? You are the only client, how can he be a consultant? PE would get in system. You have to explain what is revenue loss in India, what is the revenue system. For everything, you cannot go to court in India. So we'll have to explain to them in the initial phases, look, you don't go to court. By the time you go to court and get your admission done, it's going to take months for you. As I told, easier, make it 10 plus 2 is equal to 12. That's about it as far as transfer pricing is concerned. Spin off the complexities later. And every year, if 1.5 is accumulating, that means your net profit is accumulating on account of a TP. What do you do for this? Can you do a management cross charge? Because if you have a 10 employees, each employee gets 1,50,000, it's 18 lakhs, overheads is 7 lakhs, 25 lakhs into 12 is 3 crores. On that 12% is 36 lakhs. In 3 years, he has got 1 crore of rupees. With interest, it becomes 1.2 crores. Now, what do you do with 1.2 crores in India? You have to do a management cross charge, or you have to dividend it out. You have to tell them today. How do they claim tax credit in case you deduct TDS when they're going to take? And what does repatriation means? What is taxation? These basic cardinal principles, tell them in the first meeting. Administrative rights, when you have a GST portal, RBI portal, please use their email ID, don't use your email ID, because that's going to establish it in case they want to take you out of service and go there. We have to be open enough. If I'm not doing good work, if Divya is doing better than me, Divya has the right to take the client. So any of the RBI portals, your profession tax, your traces, your QuickBooks licenses, or Tally licenses, that's the biggest mistake we do. We tell, look, Tally, I have a Tally, I'll include your name. No, don't do that. Ask them to buy a license. Keep the data in their license. They are the license owners. And if you are a maker in the bank, be very clear that you are a maker only and these are your rights. Explain their rights to them. And explain who is an employer. A director need not be an employer for labor laws. Who is going to be the employer there? So these are the administrative things you have to make clear. And can you be a director? Yes, it could be a director. I'll skip these slides for a couple of things. Many of them would tell, can you be the director for us? Now the Institute allows us, Ethical Standards Board has given a fantastic literature on Code of Ethics. Our Code of Ethics is very good today. So we can be a director simpliciter without playing an operational role. Obviously, disclosures have to be there. We make the disclosures. But be assured that you don't just give you a name for that. We have to have a proper system for being a director, have a contract, and have an indemnity executed. And that is how they appreciate that, okay, this is the level of governance you have, and have an escrow agreement. And then you can be a director. So the company ethical standards allows you to become a director. Companies Act requires you to be a director under 149(3). I tell him, look, if you can have your CEO as a director, there's no doubt about it. But if your CEO is a director and you want to sack him, it's going to become a headache. Instead, you want to have a firm as a director. Your life is simpler. Next one, Shri. Clarity and process of timing is very nice. These are some beautiful slides. One of our article trainee by name Shreyas has structured this. Thank you, Shreyas. Unfortunately, you may not be seeing this. He has structured this, and it will show you such an easy template as how do you engage with a client in showing what will happen each minute.
So thanks, Guru. The PERT chart for incorporation is what we call it. This is quite simply done. This is basically, you already are aware. This is going to take you through how many days it takes. The idea here is for us to set the expectation right with the client on T plus what days we can get the incorporation done. So DSE is usually 2 days. DIN is along with incorporation. After all the documentation is received, incorporation will happen within 10 days. But incorporation documents client will give you, they will take time. Filing within 2 days, and then expected days by when the incorporation can be completed is T plus 4 days. Finally, we have the company. These registrations also come along with the incorporation. This was already told to you. This is how the timeline on the incorporation statutory registration looks like. The banks are tricky because bankers still insist on original documents and they still want all the apostille and notary. So here also, make sure you tell them the clients, which are the bankers which are available, who they can choose. You don't choose it for them, let them choose the bankers. Then finally, after incorporation, within 30 days, probably we can go live, and then the first payroll for the client can be processed. These are more to do with operations on what all we are required to take care. So it is self-explanatory here. I don't have to touch on much of many things. Rajgopal sir is asking me, what does T mean? T is today. If I am incorporating the company today, that means it is T. Then T plus 5 days, within that 5 days, I need to do rental agreement. Then I need to do salary breakup in the meanwhile. I need to help a company hire their first employee, where we give them all the appointment documents and those type of things. Help them with the invoicing, because the first invoicing has to be a TP invoice, so that they get the advance from the parent company to pay the salaries or rent or any office space that they want to hire, the assets that they want to procure. RBI reporting has to be done. Please make sure that we are following the RBI reporting timelines very strictly, because by default, if we delay in filing, a late submission fee is levied. Along with that, sometimes they ask us to go for a compounding. We can avoid all of those. And we need to have very good working relationship with the bankers, because your bankers have to give us the FIRC and the KYC. That is critical for the RBI filings.
Shri, I think you will have some time. We are still in 6:53. I think we have time till 7:30 for questions. Maybe you can spend a little time on this slide and explain entry by entry. I think we will cover up. I'll speed up my slides.
Sure, Guru. So we explained what is incorporation. I think in the starting slides, we told it is important that we help the client with the commercial aspects of it also. So when we are helping a client with a rental agreement, you can take up some initiative to go and find out what is the square feet rent that place offers. So you can help negotiate for a client. I know as chartered accountant, it is not probably our role, but these are the factors where, since they will not have anyone in India, they will feel assured that we are there to help them. Salary breakup is another key thing, because they understand social security fund, and for them provident fund or ESI, pension fund, all of those are very new to understand. But we can structure their salary for them, where we are adding the internet allowance, mobile allowance, and balance everything as special allowance. we always suggest the clients not to take aggressive views, because in case of any litigations, we want to avoid litigations. So if we go ahead and give a lot of allowances, I have seen books and periodicals allowances generally given, education, employment allowance. Make sure that you have enough backup on the proof documents which the employees are going to provide for you. Then when we are hiring the first employee, we can give them the offer letter formats, the appointment letter formats, along with the non-disclosure agreements. These can be templatized to suit certain US or UK laws. And then along with that, we have all the Indian laws of the labor compliance, the tax compliances, those things factored into these agreements. Sometimes new companies will not have HRs with them, so we can be their HR also. We can have a small outsourcing arm of HR where our HR team members, actually we'll already have a HR, they can play as a HR role for the company also, because they might initially think to hire a new HR. So in that sense, induction we can take for them, where we explain to the employees of the company about the company. Then the operations go live. Invoicing, I told you, we need to help them in getting money for advance, because the bankers ask you for the invoice for remitting the export proceeds into India. Projections will be required from RBI perspective if you are thinking to get further capital into the company. So further capital compliance has to be reported in FCGPR, where you are required to give a valuation certificate. So for the valuation, it will be conflict if you only do the projections. We can't do the projections. So we ask the client to give a 5-year projection. We can give them a format on what all it can contain, and the client can help you in giving the projections. Then the capital remittance happens to India. Within 30 days of the money hitting the bank account, you need to report that with the Reserve Bank of India. And today, Reserve Bank of India reporting is online. So by the time the money hits the India account, you can create the login credentials, EMF, SMS, SMF login, those things on the eBiz portal you can create, and ensure that you follow it to the end. Today, bankers are stretched because of COVID and they don't have the bandwidth to handle. But if you talk to your bankers, they will ensure that they will approve the forms that you have filed, and then eventually you will get the approval from the RBI. They will allot a number for you. While you are doing all of this, T+9 itself, we have told you should do the transfer pricing discussion, because T+45 where we have told invoicing, but T+9 at that time itself, start understanding what is the client business model, explain to them the cost plus model, CUP method, or other types of transfer pricing methodologies that are there under the income tax laws. Then the safe harbor rules, through that you can arrive at the percentage which you can add. So TP documentation and rate you can take care. You can help them with the TP agreement. And then T+30 invoicing, T+45 also invoicing. Either of the times when, if the payroll needs to happen, ensure that these are taken care easily at your end. So we are also talking of authorization matrix for India. So the authorization matrix is basically where we define. We had initially also
just one section. Just for the sake of the viewers, if you look at it here, everything is T minus. The idea of that significance is don't start the work after the incorporation. So even before incorporation, these are items which will get struck up. You'll have to start it well before the initial discussions. So that is how T minus 10. If you estimate your incorporation date to be 10th of June, you'll have to start this by 1st of June.
So this we can do beforehand itself, where we work with the client on understanding all of these things. We don't wait for the incorporation to be done and then work with the client. So you can freeze the chart of accounts, because the chart of account has to match with the parent company, where it becomes easy for them to consolidate the accounts. MIS dates, typically they will want within 5th or 7th of the month. Please pace your work in such a way that for all your clients, you can't commit for 3rd or 4th itself. So the MIS dates, we work with the client on understanding what is their reporting requirement, and accordingly we align. How to fund India? The funding to India can happen in 3 methodologies. One is as the transfer pricing invoice, where you get it as an advance towards exports. The second can be through a capital remittance, where you, for capital remittance, there is no tax component there. But what is going to happen is you are going to end up paying a compliance cost to the chartered accountant. So we explain to them what can be the compliance cost there. External commercial borrowings is also one of the other ways of getting money. So capital remittance for certain sectors is after getting money you report, but external commercial borrowings is we take the approval and then we get the money. So ensure that this order is followed. So transfer pricing advance, exports and capital remittance. How to fund India discussion that we did, then cash requirement periodicity. We understand from the client on how often they require the money, because your forex rates matter a lot and there is a transaction charge which is involved. If you keep getting money every 15 days, you can't get the money. So you estimate it and then you tell the client, based on this can be the periodicity with which we are getting the money. The transfer pricing invoice date also we can fix with them. The month close date becomes important so that the MIS is given on time. Dashboard for compliances also we set up initially, where at the time of incorporation, we do a Google Doc sort of a thing, or we share a document which explains to the client what all support we need from them to ensure that we are doing all the compliances within the time. So this dashboard will give the due dates on when what has to be complied. Fix annual calendar for month close. At the start of the engagement itself, like how payroll, you can decide when you want to make the payroll for every month, because sometimes you will get a bank holiday during the end of the month. So you decide when the close needs to happen. Like that, before itself, share a calendar and go ahead. Over to Guru for the softwares.
Thank you. And just to tell when the calendar happens, it's quite easy. What we do is we just set up a Google Calendar or a Microsoft Calendar, stating that the payroll input has to come on 25th. We just set up a calendar for 12 months. So you don't need to remember. And we also tell, okay, these are the holidays which will come. So there would be 3 days left out. Just sit down for 10 minutes and set up the calendar for payroll. If you have to pay salary on 1st, your output has to come on 28th. If your output has to come on 20th, your input has to come on 22nd or 23rd. Now, if 29th and 30th is an holiday, you should inform them at least 2-3 months in advance. So just take a diary, mark it once a year and be done with it. It will be useful. If you do it for one client, it is done for every client. The basic software is very vital. We generally give them any software where they have access 24 hours. If I tell them I'm going to use a Tally in my office and it is a desktop version, people would never be comfortable. They would like to see it on their mobile. They would like to see it on their Drive website or iPad or anything. So we use either the Tally internet-based version, or better to go for a QuickBooks, because most of them in US operate on QuickBooks. So we generally, if you are comfortable, because the US company is on QuickBooks and the India company is on another software, it gets issued. But when it comes to payroll, the US generally uses ADP or any of those Jefferson sort of a thing, but it doesn't work in India, even though they have the service here. So what we do is we use a Grey HR platform, KK platform, the 100 platforms like that. You can use any one of them. And if you look at a DocuSign is something which is quite critical, because most of them don't sign physical papers, at least for our engagement letters, appointment letters, so on and so forth. There are enough court judgments today that the Indian IT Act, the Information Technology Act, allows a DocuSign or an internet-based sign for a signature also. So if you have digital signature, suppose you have a digital signature and the client is having it in US and it's a dongle, it becomes very difficult to operate. So in case you are keeping it, if it is an Indian client, it's pretty much easier. The Indian client, I just tell, sir, namatra signature itbadi sir. Or the Indian client will tell, sir, neevu itkobadi signature. So that is the type of relationship I have with them. But in some cases, if it is a US company, if you go back and tell him, look, I would like to keep the signature, he will start thinking, what's wrong? Why is this guy keeping my signature? So we tell, okay, I'll keep a signature. I'm an escrow agent because these are the regulations for that. I'll enter into an agreement with you. Only when you send me a mail, I will be able to use the signature. For that, we have a small app that happens through Zoho. So every of these things, tech is extremely important. If you take an example of a simple thing like a bank payment, every month you have to make some 10 payments. Those 10 payments, if you ask them to upload, it becomes a nuisance value. They tell, I don't know how to upload. State Bank of India is different, HDFC is different, Citi is different. I get totally confused. So what we tell is, you don't upload. Your job is to take the decisions. Our job is to do everything else. So in case they have to take a laptop, the first thing they do is they buy the laptop, drop an invoice in our box. The moment the invoice is dropped in our box, there ends their job. After that, we do the GST input from the box. We take it to the Zoho or QuickBooks or Tally. We interface with the GST portal. We make the payment. We go to the bank statement. The bank account, we'll have a maker access. So we prepare the payment and upload it. The guy has to just go and we fix up dates. Let us have payment dates on 15th and 30th. On 15th evening, he'll go and click one click and everything is over. So that's as simple as this. Use tech as much as possible when you are dealing with experts. Jump on, Sri. What if things go wrong? Important. Is that mine, Sri? Yeah. Things like incorporation is not done. I already given hire to an employee. What do you want me to do? And we don't know if the government makes it. Of course, today it's been a fantastic experience working with MCA. 100 reasons people may tell this is not working, that is not working. But if you go back to my days of ROC, standing in the queue for 3 days to get an incorporation certificate, having that kadwa chai, and here sitting and trying to do a resubmission, which is better. So when you look at that age, it was a Murphy age, and today we are in a Sony age. Incorporations, PF, PT, everything is happening in the sync. But in case there are situations where they tell, look, I've already given hired letters to employees and they have not got the incorporation, you are to blame. You have to have solutions for that. We tell, fair enough, if that is the situation, Gurujana will give an appointment letter to them and we'll cross-charge it back to you. It's a matter of 15 days. And we will tell the employee also, this is what is that. The same happens in a laptop procurement also. We just tell, okay, you can't procure a laptop, go back to the same vendor, pay the advance 100%. You can pay the money as 100% to the vendor. And the vendor will submit the laptops to the 25, 30 people on hire basis. Suppose a laptop is costing 60,000 rupees. You tell, okay, you charge a hire of 4,000 rupees. Company is not incorporated. The employee has taken it and is using it. And when the company gets incorporated, it gets directly into an invoice. Forex rate is bad. That's going to be tough because if a client is sending $30,000 a month or $50,000, and if a rate is 15 rupees is difference, there's a 25, 30,000 bucks difference. So you'll have to negotiate hard with them. And of course, national holidays still in advance, bank holidays still in advance. This is all available in the internet. You just have to plug it. Many of them, if you go to model 1 and model 2 in the orange box, simple methods, the code of conduct allows us to do this. There are 2 ways. Somebody will come and tell, look, I want the company done by Wednesday, and he's coming here on Monday. How do you do it? So we tell, fair enough, if that is the case, our services are like this. Guru and Shri, the partners of Guru and Jana, will be the directors and promoters of the company. We will have an escrow agreement and a nomination agreement telling that we are doing it on your behalf. We incorporate the company, open the bank account, do all the registrations, then transfer the share at face value through an FCTRS. So they have operations directly. So that makes it so much more easier for them to operate. So if things go wrong, you have to have solutions. And there's a beautiful book called Jugaad, a fabulous book. Jugaad is never done in a wrong way. Indian Jugaad is extremely ethical, but we know how to tackle it well. We know how to move things well. Shri, next one, please. Safety instructions. If your office is a registered office, please do have a proper rental agreement. Ensure you are a commercial establishment. Don't do it free, for heaven's sake. If they go to WeWorks or CoWorks, they charge 10,000 bucks to 12,000 bucks for a registered office address. What stops me as a chartered accountancy office to do the same thing? Yeah, the building belongs to me. So I have to enter into a rental agreement, but no free lunch. Anything given free has no value. Being a director, take a indemnity bond. Please don't do things with this. If they go to a large MNC firm and tell, I want you to be a director, they're going to charge him 100,000 rupees every month to just be a nomination. And if I go as a chartered accountant and tell, just give me 2,000 rupees a month, the entire purpose is lost. They don't have any confidence on you. And single point of contact is very vital. They can't be, see, we have a GST team, we have a direct tax team, we have a consulting team, we have a valuation team, a corporate law team, an accounting team, a payroll team. If everybody starts interacting with the client, where will he go? By the time he gets the name, he does not even know what it is. In fact, one hilarious thing happened. We had a name ID called Srinivasa@gurujana.com. And they did not even know it was Srinivasa was a team name. He thought it was an individual. It was a team name. So you have a single point of contact. Don't use their logo even in your deck when you're going to present it to them. Ask them, can I use your logo for the deck? Those are all signs telling that we maintain high level of governance. Dropbox is not very secure. You may just tell, okay, I'll put it in a Google Dropbox, Google box or a Dropbox. They would generally look at, okay, let me get a multi-authenticated. You have an authenticator app with you. You have a dual password with you. Simple things make a lot of difference. Have a dual password. You tell him we have a dual password sort of a situation with us. Payroll is a password file. If you want to send the pay sheet to them, don't email it to them. Put it in your server and give them access to the server so that you don't make a mistake of mailing wrong. And second, in case you are sending a payroll a password, you're uploading a password, upload the pay sheet. Don't give him the password then and there. Send it in another file. Send it in another mail. These are basic safety instructions you'll have to pitch in. Shri, you can jump in.
Guru, this is still yours. We are talking of the pricing methodology here, where many of them will be interested in understanding how we
Okay.
can package this pricing.
So when it comes to pricing, these are the next 3-4 slides which will tell you how do you convert such an opportunity with something which will give you a 20 lakh rupees billing. Let us look at it like this, sir. You are having a firm with 10 people and you are 2 partners and your turnover is 70 lakhs. Now, in case you are able to project properly for 2 clients and get 2 clients of 20 lakhs and 20 lakhs each, work is there, but nothing alarming like our tax audit. When compared to our tax audit and our tribunal cases, this work is much, much lesser. But if you go and short sell something on this, you're going to short sell for a long time. In my experience, I'll tell you, as we speak now, at least we do work with some 60 of these expat clients. And not even one client we have billed less, with the intention that if I bill 1 lakh for a service, and instead of that, if I do 20,000 bucks, and they go to a lawyer and the lawyer will bill them 1,50,000. The first thing they know in their mind is they'll never think Guru and Jana is cheap. They'll think maybe they don't know. They're not experienced. So positioning on pricing is very, very vital. Anything wrong can be a havoc here. So we break it up on the first time. We make it transparent. We tell them, look, we are not a 1,999 company for incorporation. I'm not going to tell you only the incorporation. I'm going to tell you the 12-month cycle. So I'm going to tell you what is a one-time cost. What all will get into a one-time cost that includes your incorporation, valuations, HR documents, capital remittance, so much. And the figure is X. Don't go into too many details. Jump to the next one and you tell them every month I have many activities. List out the activities, could be accounting, payroll, GST, labor laws, TDS. We can list out 40 laws. And if I do this on a monthly basis, corporate law, resident director, registered office, my monthly cost annualized will become, monthly cost is 1 lakh. And if I go and tell him my GST returns is 10,000, it would never figure out. Tell, okay, my monthly cost for outsourcing your entire accounts, finance, compliances, legal job is 1 lakh of rupees. Now, 12 lakhs looks small. If you're going to pitch them for filing GST returns, I'm going to charge 1,20,000 per annum. Looks very large. So that is how you price it in that way that you're going to tell them this is the fee. Then the next slide would be what is the total cost for an annual cost? What is an annual cost? What could be the GST annual return? For doing an audit coordination, how much it is? Get a quotation from the auditors and estimate it, telling that it could cost you 1 lakh of rupees. What is IT filing? What is a FLA filing? What is TP certificate? And annualize it. Now take the 3 methods of one-time cost, monthly cost, and annual cost. One-time cost is 3 lakhs. Monthly cost is 12 lakhs, annual cost is 3 lakhs. 3 plus 12 plus 3, 18 lakhs. Divide it in terms of dollars and tell him, look, your entire finance department will get within 18 lakhs, which is 1,50,000 rupees a month. Even if you have an employee, you're going to pay him 70,000-80,000 rupees. Even after that, you need a consultant. And we don't know how much the employee knows. He may jump in 3 months, he may jump in 5 months. So you'll have to position your pricing in such a way that it looks, in fact, we enter into contracts like this. We enter into contracts per year, your contract is 20 lakhs, all inclusive. Whatever happens, we take care. Suppose if there is IT scrutiny, we go in. Suppose if there is a GST scrutiny, we go in. But of course, if our records are very good, there is no big deal of scrutiny. We just move in. So that fellow knows very clearly, look, I have to just give $2,000 a month. My employee's salary is $2,000 a month. If I take care of it, my audit, tax, accounting, compliances, everything is settled down. my pricing is clear. So make it as simple as that. Shri, next one, Shri. Shri, this is yours.
If anyone from the Bangalore branch is there, the host audio is unmuted. If you can mute it, please, it will help. See, the apostille and notary process, I'll just spend a couple of minutes here. The documents which need to be apostilled and notarized are these list of documents.
Suraj,
so the subscriber is the foreign national outside India. So the ID proof document has to be apostilled. Address proof is mandatory. Subscriber sheet of MOA and AOA also has to be apostilled. This is of the parent company. What do we talk when we talk of apostilling or notarizing these documents or officializing these documents? It is two things we need to know. One is Commonwealth nations. Someone like your UK is the Commonwealth nation because it's the British regime. In a country which is a part of the Commonwealth nation, we are only required to do the notary, which is through a notary public in the Commonwealth country. This is for all the Commonwealth nations. All the documents only have to be notarized. Coming to apostillization, this is the US companies. They are basically part of the Hague Apostille Convention nations. Through the Apostille Convention nation 1961, these documents have to be apostilled and notarized. So they go to a notary, get the notary done, and then they go to the embassy, which is where the apostille happens. So notary with the embassy's help, these documents are officialized. This they will ask you where to get it done. There are a lot of websites which give certain guidance on how it is done. It is always best that the US or UK counterparts speak with someone in their own country who are lawyers or other like our type of consultants. They will be able to guide them on how it is done. What if the countries are not Hague Apostille Convention also? What if it is not a Commonwealth nation also? Then it is required that you have to go to the diplomatic or the consular office who is empowered on this behalf to officialize these documents. Through that, the ID proof, address proof, all those documents can be officialized. Any doubts here, we'll take it at the end. In case, if it is there, we'll answer it. And where we can avoid the apostille and notary is, in the current scenario, it is not possible. But earlier, what people used to do, certain directors, is they used to visit India. And when they visit India, their passport is there. Passport is a mandatory proof for address proof for any authorized representative who's signing on behalf of the parent company. In that scenario, what we can do is, because we will be in front of them and we would have witnessed and seen their original passport documents, we can cross attest it, and those documents we can file with the Ministry of Corporate Affairs, which is the CRC, where you also have to give the business visa. Business visa is mandatory. You can't have a tourist visa. A business visa along with entry into India, that immigration stamp will be there, right? Those proof documents along with the passport, if you give all those, then for the individual, we do away with the process of the officializing of documents. And for the purposes of this clause, it is clarified that in case of a person is of Indian origin or overseas citizen of India, the requirement of business visa is not applicable. So in that sense, this is clear for us. How do you start India entry services is again where Guru is going to step in on what as a CA we can guide or how we can make our presence felt for a chartered accountant to render India entry services.
Perfect. Guys, I think we are at 7:20. We are pretty much on time. We have another 12 slides before we open it for question and answers, and we are going pretty okay. Thanks, Shri. You're doing well. And see, we'll have to be within the purview of our code of conduct. Unfortunately, the code of conduct is well structured. It is not unfortunate. Because in case I have to make it a business development trip to US, and I am willing to spend 2 lakhs, a large MNC firm is willing to spend 2 crores. So the more it opens up, it is difficult for a SME firm. I'm very comfortable doing certain things which the law allows. I'll give you a few tips. How did we build our India entry services practice? And we are still doing the same way. There are no new rocket science in this. And we have been able to get at least 4 to 5 clients every year. In the last 8 years, we would have accumulated 60, 70 clients at least 60 claims. And we started small. Now we have a full-time team heading the India entry services. We have a team of around 40 people, 50 people doing this work. See, we have a website in the US. The website could be titled as how do you want to do business in India.com. Come to India.com, investindia.com, discoverindia.com, anything. Now, that website would not talk anything about the code of conduct. That website is purely an education website. That is not going to talk about Guru, who is Prashant, who is Sri Lakshmi. It's not going to talk anything. It only is going to talk about how do you incorporate a company? How do you start a company? What is a DIN number? What is a digital signature? And we generally go into blogs like India is low in corruption. In fact, I had written one article called Technology and Corruption. Technology reduces corruption. And that did very well. That did very well. And only through that article, we got so many people asking us, what do you mean by this? So you'll have to be visible meaningfully. Please do not send brochures. Nobody has got the time of that. Please do not send newsletters, budget updates. We get any chartered accountant in India gets around 30 budget updates to him. Who's going to read that? I'm also not even going to open it. I get 30 budget updates. And if a small amendment in the act happens, amendment starts, budget starts. The 100 Google website, why would I need to waste time on that? So anything you do cannot be a newsletter driven. It cannot be a push. It has to be a pull. That is what the code tells. So create a small blog of your own in US. So when you go and type this website address in India, the tech automatically discovers that's in Indian IP. And you can't even open this website. Only in US this website is opened. So that is one way to do it. Shri, please jump to the next one. And what are the steps you can become a member of a network? Network really gives us a lot of work. The Institute of Chartered Accountants of India has given something called capacity building measures. I have a couple of webinars, both myself and Shri, we address a couple of webinars. How do you become a network member? It is there in the Bangalore branch website. So generally networks will have one state, one firm policy. We are members of HLB, and in the entire Karnataka, we are the only members. And check for local presence. The moment we wanted to become HLB members, we saw in the website who are the other members. We called them. How is the benefit? What's happening? Talk to your domestic member. Fortunately, in HLB, we had some fantastic firms. So we just searched their number in Google and spoke to them. Write to the secretariat. Every network has a secretariat. Write to them. And be open for inspection. They're going to come and open your office, check your records, check your working papers. Something like in India, if I have to do an audit, I'll send a WhatsApp to him and tell, hey boss, if I, for example, I want to file a tax returns, your filing fees is 50,000 rupees. I'll charge 30,000 rupees for this. And on the WhatsApp, he's going to tell, okay. Now, if the secretariat comes for inspection and if I show them the WhatsApp, the earth will break down. They tell what type of professional practices is, where is the engagement letter? When is it dated? So whatever the guidance note tells, follow it. The moment you go into a network, it becomes extremely mandatory for you to keep your documents super spick. A timesheet has to be well done. Of course, in Guru and Jana, we don't use timesheets at all. But whatever you do has to be extremely well documented. For example, your independence policy. The institute has given a guidance note, put it in a Google Drive, ask all your articles and members to go and read that and click, yes, I accept it. Job done. Some simple steps. So become a member of a network. That would be a big place to do it. Third, we always tell the client, it's easier to deal with a multi-services firm than a single services firm. If you see the small graph in the left, a client has to go to a law firm, it has to go to a payroll firm, it has to go to a GST firm, it has to go to a HR firm. How many firms an expat will integrate? So we tell, come to a single umbrella. And I know compliances are a pain, but what to do? Chartered accountants, we love that pain. We love compliances. So we are actually painkillers. We take your pain. Next one. There are many webinars in US. Today morning, I was seeing there are 3 webinars today morning. So please attend these webinars. Make sure you attend paid webinars. Don't go to the unpaid webinars. Choose the webinars which tell about India. They talk about Indian economy. They talk about software opportunities in India, steel manufacturing. Last week, I attended a webinar. It costed me $75. It's around 5,000-6,000 rupees. I attended the webinar. Looking at the type of quality of our webinars, they're still primitive, I feel. same style. They don't talk with, they're fully prepared. They read out, they're not impromptu, many of them. But having said that, when I attend the webinar, I should be very silent. I don't make myself present. Just one odd question. One question. I made a question last week. Sir, you talked about the steel industry in India. I just wanted to add that this is what is the percentage of the latest, maybe the statistics, what you have got is wrong. Or you may be right, please correct me. Be very respectful. That really caught everybody's eyeballs. I may not get a client out of that, but I made my presence felt. If I attend 3-4 webinars, I'm sure I could at least get 1 or 2 people to come for clarifications. Anybody comes for clarifications, we generally give it free. They keep in touch, and over a period of time, it builds up. The third is be members of many Chamber of Commerce. Send your profile to them. These are the services we offer. Be members, and if you take the American Chamber of Commerce, 13,000 rupees is the fees what you pay. They'll give you some fantastic webinars, some very good seminars. Food is good. Cultural events are good. You get some time. Not even 25 people are there. Last time I went for a German Chamber of Commerce summit. They were talking about COVID. Absolutely useless topic. There were 6 people who attended. I was sitting there. Spend 2 hours. It happens in the Brigade Orion Mall. And near that, there is the Chamber of Commerce. There's Irish Chamber of Commerce. Go there, have a cup of tea, walk around the mall, go there for 45 minutes, attend the webinar, make your presence felt, come back. These have yielded fantastic results for us. Next, please. Some points related to compliance. Shri, this is yours.
In fact, as Guru was telling about the trade offices that are there, we remember we got a client from the German Chamber of Commerce. They had worked with an earlier chartered accountant who had held all the records and was not releasing it for them to change the chartered accountant. They had to go through a huge cycle. Actually, I think Guru also spoke to them, but eventually what happened is the Chamber of Commerce intervened and then helped in transition. That way, working with the Chamber of Commerce makes our, it broadens our thinking and the type of clients that we get to work with. This is one of the filings that we are required to do for a foreign company, which is usually not something we concentrate, but it has to be there in the list of our annual compliances. It is the FLA return, the foreign liabilities and assets return. It has to be submitted by the Indian resident companies which have received foreign capital or at any point in time during their year in which they were incorporated, prior years. So basically, once if you have received FDI, you're required to file this FLA all through. It's an annual return. It has to be filed before July 15th every year. And non-filing of this it leads to violation of the FEMA laws. The penalty is not prescribed, so they can prescribe at their whims and fancies. So far, we've only seen reminders come from RBI where they have told us we have not filed the returns, please file. We've not seen penalty being levied, but with the way RBI is functioning and everything is being automated, earlier this used to be an Excel return which we were supposed to submit. Now they have made it online, the Flare website, so we are required to file online. And this can be filed with the unaudited numbers. You don't need to have the audited numbers for filing it. And in the eventuality that your audited numbers is different from the unaudited ones on all the fields that you would have filled, make sure that you resubmit and give a revised return. That is allowed. The filing of particulars are what all you are required to take care. The identification of particulars, which is of the company, the financial details, certain fields have to be filled. What are the investments that are made in India that needs to be populated into that form, and the foreign assets we have, and a variation report. And I think there is an open book value which we have to arrive at, OBV valuation, that you need to have a computation. It's a simple formula based thing. Work on it and arrive at it. And please make sure that you are charging a fee to a client. And we already told you, initially when you are starting to work with a client itself, give a full year's view. Let's not do that situation where first you go to a dentist where they will tell first you have some cavity, then they will tell you you have to dig it, and then finally root canal is where eventually they'll get it, but they will go through a lot of stages of it. Now itself, let us make it clear to a client that these are the things that we need to take care. So ESOP is one of the other things. As Indian companies who are subsidiaries of the foreign companies can do. What is the ESOP here allow you to do? As an employee or director of the Indian company, we can purchase equity of the foreign company under the ESOP scheme. This ESOP scheme is of the foreign company. The parent company should have an ESOP plan, which is the main plan. Then the India company needs to have a sub plan. You can help in creating this sub plan for them. And all this can be done through a shareholders meeting. Of course, you need to do a board meeting, place it here on record, and then do a shareholders approval also. There has to be an annual return which is filed by the Indian company with RBI at the time of exercise of the options by the employees. A lot of other things also will come into picture where you will have to take care of the tax laws, you will have to take care of taxation relating to the ESOP. There has to be a valuation that is required for ESOP specifically. All those things we need to meet. Along with that, when there is an option which gets exercised by the employees, make sure that the company, that is your client, is filing the annual return with the Reserve Bank of India. The FRRO rules, please stay away, is basically what we are trying to convey here is that ensure that you are complying with all of the laws, like how for the Indian employees we have PF, for the foreign expats also that we employ here in India, we are required to register them, and it is the same EPF is at 12% for them. An exemption will only be if the Social Security agreement is not available with the home country. So expat employees are exempt from contribution towards PF only if the home country does not have this agreement or an economic bilateral treaty with India. Otherwise, it is capped. So PF has to be capped at 15,000, the gross wages. There is no cap on the salary on which the contributions are payable by the employer or the employee. Like how a pension is there for expat employees, there is no concept of a pension. So any deduction that happens is all through the PF, which should be the 12%, which is same for the employee as well as for the employer. For expat employee, Aadhaar is not mandatory. You can't expect them to have a place of residence here in India with all the proper document proofs and everything. Instead, the passport details have to be mentioned for getting the UAN number on the PF portal. A lot of clients, when they have expat, make sure that we take care of these compliances. They are not to be treated at par with the regular employees, but at the same time, we have to follow all the expat taxation requirements. Another important issue which we have over a period of time seen resistance with client is to do the compliance relating to the annual report, which has to be hosted on the company website. So they say that I am a company which is probably held by the parent company, and then I don't want to give out any numbers to be displayed on the website. So MGT 7, we are required to give out the details on where I'm hosting the website. That time we have to clearly tell if I have a website, I have to show, or if it is a parent company website, ask them to make a clear bifurcation telling annual reports and India compliances in one common tab or in one corner tab, that the US company with their technology team are hosting it. Typically, they will tell we don't want to do it, but impress on them, non-compliance of it will lead to some penalty. I think this was quite clear. Then I think the next of the few slides is where we come to the concluding points, where Guru is going to take over, and finally we'll open the floor for Q&A.
Yeah, thanks, Lee. So everybody is a little worried from the context that if the US directors are there, what is the liability on me? Because if the Indian director is one and US director is one, it will only be two people. And if there is something sour which goes on between them, the Indian director does not even come to a board meeting and it can become a messy affair. Again, it will go to NCLT, so on and so forth. It's a nuisance value. So always we tell the US directors, you guys be two, let the India director be one. So at any point of time, the majority would be with you. That's a cardinal principle. Now everybody have the standard question, what is the liability onto me? So we explained to them, look, the Indian director will have to be made compliance officer. You have to pass resolutions and make sure that he is liable for everything, point one. Second, we also tell them we'll prepare a dashboard every meeting, board meeting, and place it in the board. So they are safe in that context and external party is presenting a dashboard. Then the third will be what is the consequence of a matter relating to POSH. So we tell there should be an employer in India, there should be a whole-time director in India. So that is where when you are lending out your name as a director, please be very careful. You cannot be an executive director. The code also will not allow you to do that. The code will only want you to be a non-executive director. So these are the basic things which you'll have to tell them, and essence on principles of governance is very high. And of course, the legal principles of an independent legal entity, it cannot go back to the directors, so on and so forth, unless there is a major fraud. If there is a fraud, obviously the Indian government will write to them, that's fine. But unless that is in the routine operations, there should be no concern. See, next one, please. And there are many judgments to this extent, stating that what is there was an enforcement directorate ruling on MS Pharma and Nita Balla. There are many cases like this which tell what the Supreme Court has held, what is the liability on the India account, what is the liability of the US directors. So you can have a small write-up to them just to show them, look, these are the 5 judgments we have. This is the basic principle. And finally, you will look, we'll take care of this. The fact that you're presenting to them 3-4 High Court judgments, 2 Supreme Court judgments, they know that you know the subject. So as soon as they come, give them this. Giving them a procedure of how to obtain a DIN, how to incorporate the company, what is the capital clause is of no use. That's only going to repel them away. Giving them about what is POSH, what is the liability on them, what is the judgment which is there in High Court of Karnataka for this. Could one standard deck which can be kept with you for all your clients. Next one, Shri. Safe harbor rules, quite simple. You tell, look, if you want to pay, if you want to be aggressive, have a 9% cost plus 9% as transfer pricing. Tomorrow income tax may come and tell it is 13%. We'll go to litigation. Finally, possibly we may border down at 11%. But in case you want to be super safe, if your company is small, have a 17% safe harbor rules margin. If it is large, you have 18%. Of course, for financial year 2021 onwards, safe harbor rules have not been notified. But when we have a conflict, because whenever she tells talks to a client, she tells better go to safe harbor margin. 17% is the tax rate. On that you have to pay 25% margin. If you're going to pay 17% into 25%, it is 3.5%. Pay it up. It's okay. It's not much. But I always, when I advise the client, I'll tell, let's take an aggressive position. Either way, it is a statement of fact. So I'm going to take a position that the 9% is the safe harbor rules. I mean, 9% is the rate of transfer pricing, whichever method you take. And if the income tax comes and pushes you hard, then let us see. Either way, the scrutiny guidelines are very simple today. You have to come under the scrutiny guidelines to fall under that. So many years we go and tell, okay, 3 years you may get away. Chill out and later let us see. Many of them pitch in that idea. They'll tell, okay, we'll bite the bullet. Let's take a risk. There's no big harboring of the tax laws here. And US GAAP, India GAAP, please be very careful, because December you'll have to file a US GAAP, because we maintain QuickBooks or Tally as per the Indian GAAP, because the stat auditors will have to come. We will not pass any of the US GAAP entries in the books, because to explain to the Indian stat auditors can become Herculean, because if they come and tell what is this entry, I'll have to explain everything to them. So we don't maintain the US GAAP in India books. We do it in Excel. We take the India trial balance, make the adjustments of trial balance, then take the US closing trial balance and do it. Differences could be in depreciation policies, because we go as per the Companies Act. US GAAP is totally different. Year-end provisions and amortizations can be extremely different, because here we take a totally different method of deferred tax, deferred revenue expenditure. We take a totally different model of trial run costs and all. In US, it's a totally different model. ESOP accounting in types of accounting policies for US are very different. In case you have any financial assets, as I told you, the 1.5 is accumulating over a period of 3 years. It becomes 4.5 plus interest. That becomes 3 crores. How are you going to value it? In India, I just take a net asset value. They may, in US GAAP, they would like to look at a fair value. Leases can be very, very differently accounted. So please keep it outside the books. Have a clear chart. In many cases, I told, look, I don't know US GAAP. I'll give you the India GAAP. You please help me do it. The easiest way with any foreign company to tell is, I don't know. I am not aware. That is much more easier than just nodding the head, kuch kar lenge. ಏನು ಮಾಡಕ್ಕಾಗಲ್ಲ ಆಮೇಲೆ. ಆಮೇಲೆ ಸುಮ್ಮನೆ ಏನಾದರೂ ಹೇಳಿ ನಾವೇ ಸಿಕ್ಕಾಕೊಳ್ತೀವಿ. So please tell, in many cases, ನನಗೆ US GAAP ಗೊತ್ತಿಲ್ಲ. I'll give you the Indian GAAP balance sheet. You prepare the US GAAP balance sheet. I'll assist you. Perfectly okay. Next one, Shri. RBI reporting for inward remittances, many of us make this mistake. Please be very careful. When you're raising an invoice, it's a credit. When money is going to come back, it is a debit. The bank will maintain your Excel of what is the debits, what is the credits. Total number of invoices is 12. Total number of receipts is 12. Many cases we get advances because some expenses are there. We don't want to increase the capital. Suppose they want to buy 25 laptops. It will be costing some 20 lakh of rupees. For that, can I go and tell, let us do an authorized capital increase, paid up capital increase, whole lot of things. We don't valuation, RBI reporting. Don't do that. Get 3 months advance or get 2 months advance. So we keep getting advances. Sometimes we tell there is a lot of profit, don't send money, we'll wait. Because we don't want to keep money in the Indian books. Because it's just lying in the current account without even fetching money, or it will go to the fixed deposit. But of course, having stated that, many places we have gone and advised them, look, in US, you are a venture fund. You have got $5 million. You are not earning 1 rupee in US. In the next 2 years, dollar currency is going to be like this. Would you like to hedge it? Can we take a forward cover for the dollar? We'll keep money in mutual funds, in liquid funds. It is safe for you. You're going to earn 8%. Hedge, you are going to lose 2%. So 6% is your net earning. Yeah, fair enough. You may lose a little taxes, but even then you're making 5% in US, you're paying to the bank. You're not making 1% also. So make this RBI reporting very, very cautious. Knock it off. The banker will give you a JDGFT website. They'll go and show it to you. And post that, we can download the EBRC certificate. EBRC certificate, please download it every year. It is very vital. If it goes for 4 years, we are in trouble. Let me not spend too much time on PE, but just keep an eye, because many of them enter into contracts with the Indians, and they'll have a direct contract from San Francisco or Chicago to the Indian employee. Again, Article 5.1 of the USDTA is very, very clear. 5.2 is very clear, 90 days policy, employed in India, but he's providing service to the wholly owned subsidiary. India cannot be controlled by the US. It can only do India business, have a proper transfer pricing agreement. There cannot be any concerns. We would have done around 60 cases. I never faced a issue on PE, because we have put a foot down to the client to have any other agreement between India and US other than the TP agreement. Don't do it. Many of the companies directors will tell you, give me 50 lakhs here, pay me 50 lakhs in US because I have a US account. Absolutely no, we put a foot down. That's going to attract PE for me, because this guy is sitting in India. Tomorrow he's going to file his tax returns and he'll club the US income to the India income, and he's going to come back and the assessing officer will tell, why can't it be a PE? Show me the US books. That time it's going to kick the bucket and we'll be in trouble by doing that. Don't do any of those things. Enough of Supreme Court judgments are there. E-funds for IT solutions is there. Adobe case is there, which is pretty famous for all of us. The right to use the premises of the subsidiary company with the transfer pricing study cannot establish a PE. The Supreme Court in that case laid down the guidelines. How do you establish a PE? So in all our pitch documents, we tell, follow the 6 guidelines. If you follow the 6 guidelines, there is no PE. Take an example. Your US client wants to set up a liaison office in India. They go under 29 and set up a liaison office in India. And in the liaison office, they can only do liaison work as described under FEMA. But here they're sitting and doing trading. So tomorrow, if FEMA guys come or enforcement directorate comes, it becomes messy. You're exposing everything to a PE. So we tell every year when you're doing a liaison office, answer this questionnaire to me. We take that questionnaire answered by the directors telling that, did you sign a purchase order? Did you sign a vendor order? Did you fix the rates? Did you do the following things? We take a declaration. So they are also aware that they are not getting into a PE. So be very careful when you do the PE part of it. Should we skip it? I think we are done. That's a group picture of our office. That's before the COVID times. Unfortunately, today we don't have that picture. Last time we had a similar meet called the town hall. Actually, you can minimize the screen now. We had the similar meet called the town hall last time, and we did it digitally. That's never the fun like this. That town hall physically is always much nicer than anything else. We are done now, and we would like to take any questions which you have. We tried to keep 15 minutes for question and answer session, as Shetty sir told. Now I think we have kept 16 minutes. We have 1 minute beforehand.
There is one question on the chat. The question that they're asking is, would you recommend a company or a LLP to be formed in the case of India Entry Services?
See, it all depends on how do you want to structure it. Now, if you have a foreign company which is in US, and if it is promoter driven and it is not a VC fund driven, we'll generally see, is there a chance that it can get taken over? Is there a chance which can get taken over? It becomes so much more easier. So in those cases, when we look at their projections for valuations, obviously the company has to prepare the projections. We'll tell, okay, your age is 55, 60. After 5 years, what do you want to do? Do you want to sell the company? So from the context of that, we'll advise them better to have a private limited company because it's so much more easier to transition. Because when you get acquired, the new company will just acquire the equity and be done with it. Otherwise, I'll have to redraft the entire LLP agreements and things like that. The second aspect I would also consider is when there is an exit or when there is a liquidation. See, if you go to a US company, it is very, very common for them to get liquidated. They file for Chapter 11. And for them, what is the meaning of filing Chapter 11? They just appoint a bankruptcy professional. They sign a declaration of Chapter 11. They sign it and hand it over to them, walk out of the office. They don't even sign the bank accounts. They don't hand over anything. They just throw it and walk out. So the bankruptcy professional enters the office, sells the assets, negotiates with the bankers. Everything is done by him. But if it is a LLP, we are getting very confused in such a situation. It's becoming quite messy. Third, nomination agreement is very easy because you need to have a resident director in India. So nomination of a resident director is much more easier because I can enter into an agreement. Then the fourth one we always tell a client is 1956 is the Companies Act. You have jurisprudence of 75 years. I can depend on any case law under the Companies Act. 2008 is the LLP Act. Number of LLPs in India are very less. So to that extent, jurisprudence does get limited. And more than that, if it is a private limited company, I get a 25% or a 22% tax depending on where I sit. But if it is an LLP, I'm landing up paying 35.2. So if I land up having a safe harbor rules and go to 17% as my tax rate, and on that, if I have to pay 35.2%, it does get quite pinchy. But if I'm going to a private limited company, I just pay 22.5. Last but not the least, tech employees find it very difficult to digest it. See, most of them coming to Bangalore are tech companies. Non-tech companies are not coming to Bangalore. If you look at it, out of 60, we have 40 of them in Bangalore and 20 outside Bangalore, some in Gurgaon, some in Pondi, some in Cochin. We don't know. They are all over. But in a tech, an employee, when he joins, LLP is creating some issues. LLP na, partnership firm, he does not even understand it's a corporate entity. So attracting employees is a concern. So we put all these slides and tell the client, please don't go to LLP, go to a private limited. It's much easier for us. So on these grounds, I would rather vote for a private limited and LLP. For them, it is easy to understand because in US, you have a C Corp, S Corp, pass-through vehicle, non-pass-through vehicle. They get it. But personally, still, we are a partnership firm as Guru and Jana. We are 12 partners. We are not a LLP. We still have the old 1932 Partnership Act. So I would vote for a private limited. Shetty sir, nimde question idea sir. Nimgella gottide sir. Nimgen question on the chairman alla.
So tell me how exactly that directorship works. How you make? You said you only provide directors for them.
Correct.
So exactly how you are going to make your employees or partners or who is?
Sir, generally from the risk potential, because when we were a smaller firm, I would have been comfortable. Risk is much lesser. So I would give my name and tell, okay, Nanne Rakolippa director. It doesn't matter to me. But today, sir, fortunately, God has been kind. We have been doing well. Today, we are 450 people. The risk is much higher. So to put my name as a director, I find it little sort of a dilemmatic. So ಈಗ ಯಾರಾದರೂ ಎಂಪ್ಲಾಯೀಸ್ ಹೆಸರು ಹಾಕ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಓಲ್ಡ್ ಎಂಪ್ಲಾಯೀಸ್ ಟ್ರಸ್ಟೆಡ್ ಎಂಪ್ಲಾಯೀಸ್ ವಿಲ್ ಪುಟ್ who are there with us for 10 years, 12 years. We always take the resignation letter well in hand without a date. We enter into an agreement with the employee. The money comes to Guru and Jana because the firm has entered into a contract to provide directorial services. So the contract of the commercial contract is with Guru Jana. The nomination contract is with the director. So even when I take my indemnity insurance, I take it as a firm. So, and generally from the costing point of view, if it is an employee point of view, we charge anything between 15 to 16,000 rupees a month because my insurance cost is 3,000. The employee gets 3,000 as his incentive because he's giving his name and the firm gets 8,000-9,000. We bill a GST invoice. But if it is a larger company, if a partner has to pitch in, and if it is a senior partner, nothing less than 75,000, we would be able to pitch in. In fact, I'm a director in some 3 companies or 4 companies right now. All of them pay anything between 70,000, 75 to a lakh of rupees. But trust me, sir, if your profiling is well established, if they find the trust connect, getting the invoices raised is very easy. The moment we have a trust issue, I'll give you a simplest example, sir. In case I put in my quote, out of pocket expenses 20,000 rupees, I'm done. Because US anti-corruption practices 1944 directly violates. So I'm totally done. There's not going to be a chance that I'll get a directorship, neither I'll get a job. So in case I position myself and tell, look, from the past 17 years, which is a truth I can tell on an open forum, we have not paid a single rupee bribe. And in fact, when we have some of our multinational companies check our accounts, we have signed a contract with a global Fortune 500, they can see our accounts. They inspected, they couldn't find a single mistake. So unless, I would rather put it today that trust and credibility is money. The more the credibility, the higher the fees can be. So if I don't need you, boss, I cannot do all the following, sorry, you can go. The fees automatically goes. Many a times I go back and tell, let me check out my time and come back to you whether I can accept you. And every client I have done that, whatever fees I've quoted, we have got. If I go back and tell, please, can you consider me taking as a service, that never works. And not that we have 60, we were doing this when we were 2 companies also.
So, Shetty sir, another thing is that they understand the resident director requirement under the law, because in US also there is a secretary, resident secretary, which they are supposed to appoint, and they charge anywhere between $8,000 to $12,000 for the year. So it's quite easy that
The cost we are talking about is very, very nominal for them.
Absolutely.
Yes, exactly.
Sir, actually, we are underselling our professional services because we cannot be doing. In fact, Eston Jana, sir, we go back and tell people, how much do you charge for incorporation? 25,000. No, it's not so easy. I have to educate him. I have to guide him for 3 months, 6 months time. In fact, Sri has got a checklist of incorporation. It got 75 items. Rubber stamp rubber stamp hack format kalsiyan. It's a whole lot of service. If I end up doing that 25,000, I'll get frustrated. And again, if I go to
what is the ideal fees for incorporation?
So ideal fees, I would recommend that from the incorporation, statutory registrations, transfer pricing study, and all the documentation should be anything between 3 to 6 lakhs. If it is only incorporation and statutory registration, it should not be less than 1,50,000. How much ever, in fact, I was doing this when I was 10 years old, I used to charge 1 lakh. 2010, I have charged 1 lakh. See, today we may be a larger firm. That time we were only 70 people, 50 articles. And in India Entry Services, we have to be very critical on that.
Sir, on this, I have a point. You need to break up all the services. You can tell incorporation is just 30,000, but then all the other things, if you break it up, then they understand that so much is involved. Because when I bill a client, initially 50% we take the advance, but balance 50% we are able to bill after 3 to 4 months only.
Yeah. One more question. See, that is regarding India Entry. That local, I just want to check for the benefit of me and maybe for the viewers also, how the local collection happens. You take in advance audit service and all.
100%, sir.
Local, I'm talking about, not India Entry.
Except statutory audit, all other services we take advance.
Statutory audit?
So statutory audit, we take 30% the time we come to a reasonable stage of giving the financials.
Okay.
By the time we take the MRL, we take 50%. Of course, the balance 50 takes me 3 months, at least 2 months. But without advance, even
50% to complete agogte.
Sir, valuation and any of those services or accounting services, unless they pay in 100% advance, we don't even start.
No, statutory audit is 50% at least by the time of completing the audit.
Sir, a simple example, sir, if I'm doing accounting, payroll, compliance services, I'm almost like your employee.
Yeah.
So when you're paying all the you are paying the employees on first, I am only processing the salaries. Why are you paying me after 60 days?
Yeah, that one has to take on time advance or at the time of delivering the service. That I agree. Yeah.
And thank you very much. When we started, we were 58 people.
Much.
Sir.
Yeah.
When we started, we were 58. Even now, they are 58.
Yeah, all stayed back, and it went on very well. Really, very good insight about this India Entry service offering. Fantastic. I really enjoyed, and I was throughout there with you. Okay.
Shetty sir,
So I want to show it to my partners also. Probably I'll show it tomorrow or day
sir, I had one request from you. There are participants here. See, our profession is what has given us everything. Other than the chartered accountancy, ಏನು ಇಲ್ಲ ನಾವು. So, in any of you require any help, any clarification, please feel free to write to me. You can
Sure.
write to shri@gurujana.com. You can
Yeah.
write to me at guru@gurujana.com or go to our website and just write to us. We'll be happy to be of use to you.
Sure, sure, sure. We need a lot of help.
And thank you for
Okay.
thank you for the opportunity, sir.
Thank you very much. Very useful and interactive session you made. Fantastic, actually. Together, both of you came together. I think it's made much more interactive and very, very useful session. Definitely, I really enjoyed. Definitely, all others, because everyone stayed back. That's the point. Because you made it so interesting and excellent. Thank you very much. I request Divya to propose formal vote of thanks. Thank you
Good
very much.
Chairman.
I'll disturb you.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Members, on behalf of Bangalore branch, I take this occurrence to propose formal vote of thanks for today's program. Thank you so much, both the speakers, Guru sir and Sri Lakshmi madam, for an excellent presentation. Thank you so much also for giving some of the finest updates, and I'm sure that all our members will be very much benefited out of this. Once again, wholehearted thanks to both of you for making this event a very special one. Thank you so much once again.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much. Kind of you. Good day.
Thank you all the participants for your active participation. Keep watching Bangalore branch website for the further programs. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman, sir.